Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. Today, talking about a very interesting snare batter, snare side set from Attack Drumheads. It's the Eric Singer Tone Ridge 2. There are a lot of choices for snare batters and a lot of choices for snare side heads out there too from lots of different companies, and there are many that cater toward a certain kind of playing. There's some that are trying to sound like calf heads or extra thin, extra thick, all that different stuff, two plies, everything. We've seen a lot, and the one we're dealing with today, this pair actually is both singularly and together heads that I've never played before and that are really fascinating and unique, and we're just going to kind of jump right into it. Start with the batter side. Now, this is the Tone Ridge 2 batter from Attack. It is a 2-ply, two 7mm plies sandwiched together, and it has a unique kind of ridge crimp around the head about an inch in from the edge that kind of creates two different zones that does an incredible job of taking care of some overtones but not boxing the drum out entirely like some heads do that have a lot of mass or that have extra mass around the edge. The goal with this is to get a dark, punchy, but also still aggressive sound and plenty loud. Aiming for hard hitters, Eric Singer, Kiss, hard hitter. So what this needs to do basically is sound good, stay in tune, and also hold up to being ridiculously punished, which is what we're going to do today, and I'm super excited about it. Now, secondarily, there's a matched snare side head with this, which is also Eric Singer signature, and it's a 5mm snare side head, and I have to confess, I've never had my hands on a 5mm snare side head. They're around. The standard is 3. Most companies also offer a 2 and a 5. We did 2 sounds today. We're going to start off with what I would consider to be like the medium-ish to, medium-high range that I would use this for if I was going to play some rock. Now, when you're trying to get your snare to speak in a mix that's a loud rock situation where you're playing beefy hi-hats and you're riding on crashes a lot and the rides are pretty bright and things like that, it stands to reason that you'd want it to be loud and that you'd want it to cut through, but you wouldn't think about words like dark or throaty or warm necessarily in those situations, which is what this is doing, but at a volume threshold and at a I don't know, it's like the mids of the thing are just jumping out more than if it was a standard like 10mm coated batter, which is super cool. It's hitting me in the chest. Like the harder I hit it, I can feel it here the way that you would normally feel like a bass drum or maybe a floor tom, something like that. I put the batter on first and we had a 3mm on the bottom and things felt okay. They sounded okay. And then we put the 5mm on and it all just kind of came together and made this just super punchy and ridiculously loud sound that was still sensitive and felt like the harder I hit it, the better it sounded. And I love that. Now, a little bit about the coating. The coating on these heads is shockingly durable. I've mentioned it in previous videos as well. It is also very brush friendly right out of the gate. This might not necessarily be the sort of head that a brush player would use, but if you play a lot of country music and you have to hit hard with sticks and also use brushes sometimes, or rods or things, you don't want them getting caught or kind of like scratched in to the coating, this coating is fabulous for all implements right out of the gate. One of the best that I've ever seen, for sure. Additionally, about the brushes and implements, this does give you a bit of the feel of having some kind of tone controller on the edge, but since there's nothing additional to the batter, you're not going to run any of your implements into anything and get caught up in like an E-ring or a, any other kind of stuff that's actually present sitting on top of the batter. Now, coming up, I was definitely a heavy hitter. I had 2Bs. I hit things as hard as I could all the time. And when I started getting really concerned with tone and sound and things like that, I realized that a lot of the time there was kind of a ceiling to how hard I could hit the drum before it started to kind of diminish in terms of tone and resonance and just like good sound. Live, do whatever you want, but particularly in studio situations or situations where you have to be dynamic, hitting it just with everything you have and with a really heavy stick sometimes can overwhelm the drum and kind of make the sound collapse on itself. So then that is doubled a lot of the time by using a thicker head or a 2-ply head or a head with rings around the edge or a 2-ply head with rings around the edge, where as you tension it up to a cutting tension, you start to choke the head out. And this head would not choke no matter how hard I hit it. I was hitting it as hard as I could for a while here. There are barely even marks on it, which is also wild. But it really was opening up the harder that I hit it, which is what you want if you're looking for a head for this kind of application. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're going for the highest possible energy and you're getting less out of the drum than if you backed off. That's super frustrating. Now, on the other hand, it is a warm sound, but the high end is also coming out, which with a lot of pre-muffled things and with thicker heads, oftentimes gets a little bit diminished. It's overwhelming my earplugs, to be totally honest, which is crazy, and I'm not sure if that's ever really happened before. Now, the true test of a beefier head for power hitting and really hitting super duper hard is tuning it up really high, because the higher you go, the higher likelihood there is that you're going to reach a threshold where the head is not going to resonate and it's not going to give you back tone. So I'm going to crank it up real high and see just kind of how it behaves. At this range, for this kind of range of tone, this is exactly what I want to have out of the gate. Usually it would take a little bit of tape or it would take some finagling. It might even take a moon gel to calm down the overtones, but there's just enough of the overtones I want in the head and not really anything else. It feels very sort of gently EQ'd, gently compressed. When we listen back to the playbacks before, anything, it sounded fantastic right out of the gate. It sounded kind of sculpted, just immediately. And I didn't really fuss with the snare side head for that other tuning. I just tuned the batter up super high. Still feels good, doesn't feel like a tabletop. Really nice for rolls. It's giving me back a lot more rebound than 2-ply and pre-muffled heads tend to do, again, because of that sort of suppression. I can only assume that it's got something to do with the material and also with the ridge, which are the variables going on with this head. Now, I was super apprehensive about a 5mm snare side head, both because I've never really used one and also because it's sort of conventional thinking that if a 3mm is normal and a 2mm tends to be marketed for orchestral music, or at least for lighter playing, that you would get less sensitivity the thicker you go. Seems reasonable. However, when you're dealing with a particularly massive batter head, like a lot of mass and thickness, I think that in this case, the added mass on the snare side head is helping to move and generate resonance longer and easier in the thicker batter head. Whereas with a thinner one, you might start to get some choking in the batter. These two working together are just like an excellent team for doing really loud, really heavy hitting stuff. And as far as I can tell, no damage to the head whatsoever. Additionally, you only need to listen to some of this playing, especially the things that are slightly lower dynamics, to see that we're getting tons of snare response. It's perfectly sensitive despite how thick the batter is, despite how thick the snare side is. Having more mass means you need more energy to move it. It's just physics. But since these are both slightly thicker, it seems to me that they're working together the way that a 10 mil on top and a 3 mil on the bottom would, which is to say one is not a whole lot heavier than normal. They're both just one step up. This pair of heads would be great for basically any live, loud, like medium to very loud situation. As I said before, it is perfectly set up for if you need to use broomsticks or brushes or other things on there if you want to play with your hands, all of that kind of stuff, because there's nothing in the way. It kind of generates a great sort of evened out, slightly EQ'd and sculpted and warm sound right out of the gate. We are also shocked at how amazing it sounds under microphones in the studio. If I was in a situation where I couldn't bring a lot of heads to a session, for instance, and I needed to make sure that it was going to last for a while and I knew that I was going to be hitting pretty hard, it would be an excellent candidate for that too. You could muffle it a little bit too if you need to sculpt the sound a little bit, because it is still open enough when it's wide open to have some wiggle room there. And for sure, as far as like double ply snare batters go, I am amazed by this one, and I've played them all, and this is particularly special. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks so much to Attack Drumheads and Cardinal Percussion for allowing us to go on this journey and hit these heads super hard. Thanks to Eric Singer, crazy sentence to say, for working on these with them, because it's a really useful product, and I had a blast with it today. It was super duper fun. If you're interested in learning more about Attack Drumheads, follow the link below, check out the website, check out all the stuff that they're up to, a lot of new and interesting products that are super duper unique, and look for these wherever you normally buy drumheads. And if where you normally buy drumheads doesn't have them, ask them to start carrying them, because they're pretty killing. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and click the little bell down there so you get notifications about our new episodes. In addition to features like this, we're doing our regular tutorials on Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, along with a lot of extra stuff, especially on the Patreon. Got some new things coming up on the Patreon that I'm super excited about. Jump over there, link is below. Check out the tiers, see if you can help out, see what's available, all that good stuff. And super curious, as much as this is about the batter head, I'm also really curious if anybody out there is all about 5mm snare side heads. If you're into 2-ply batters, I want to hear about that too, but the 5mm snare side head is like a sleeper, man. Like I didn't know. I just didn't know. Yeah, so if you know anything about those, if you're into them, let us know, and we'll see you out there.